Sure, you could be a millionaire and be like, I'm just going to pay a vending company to put games in my spot. And that's fine, but I feel like it's a little soulless. You know, I want to know these games. I want to play these games. And like, that's why I'm here, is to play these games with people. I am Dave Aceto. I'm one of the owners here at Arcadia National Bar in Portland, Maine. We are, you know, kind of a throwback classic arcade. You've got your pinball machines, your video games. We throw some board games in there. We, you know, kind of mix it with an adult setting of alcohol because, you know, games and drinks go well together.
It's been years since the city of Portland, Maine has had their own video game arcade. That's why Arcadia National Bar opened up to enormous popularity. Arcadia co-owner Dave Aceto recalls opening night and has a few pointers for those preparing to open their own arcade bar.
I mean, I remember the first night, one of the bartenders was like, I am ready to pass out, just because it was so much volume so quickly. I mean, it was great. I would much rather have that than have nobody show up on day one. Get ready for lines. Get ready for lines out the door. And I was like, no, that's not going to be the case in Portland, Maine. Like, we're a small town. You know, we're hardly a city. And then we were just so overwhelmed. We ran out of quarters the first night. It was some trial by fire. I'll tell you, one of the best investments that I've made is a change machine that holds like 17 times more quarters than our original, because having to change quarters every night was the bane of my existence. I definitely will refer to myself as a kind of museum curator. I have a hand in what games are here and what is on display, if you will. I think that, I mean, I'm very proud of our pinball collection. I think it's some of the best pinball games you will see. It's, you know, it's top titles, but it's also underrated titles that I think are really cool. Future Spa is one of those games that we were able to rescue from Pinball Wizards when they closed in Pelham, New Hampshire. It's one of those games that I think is a really good older game that's so different than the way that newer Stearns or Jersey Jacks or Spooky Pinballs, like it's very flat, and you think at first it's gonna kind of be a slow game, but oh my god, it kicks your ass so quickly. But it's super fun. It's a really good, like, not that I condone betting quarters, but it's a really good, if you were to do that, a really good game. And we've been kind of starting, it's one of those things where each game kind of has a goal that you want to get to, like on Ice Cold Beer, which you'll see, you want to get to 10. On Addams Family, you want to complete touring the mansion. And with Future Spa, we've been working on players trying to roll the game over to 1 million, because I mean, anytime you can roll a game over, like that feels pretty awesome. So that's the deal in Future Spa. Monster Bash, one of the best games of all time. Top 5 pinball machine, hands down. Definitely like my most precious game that I have. Hoop It Up. We've got a tournament for it tonight. Just installed a new ball into it. Again, this is one of those games that you're probably going to have to fix something every week on it, and just kind of readjust to make sure both sides are even. The goal that we've been looking for in this game is somebody to get 200 points. We've waited for somebody to get 200 points. We've offered a $100 bounty if anybody does it, As you can see right now, the high score is 192, so nobody has done it yet, but they've become very close. Now, one of the best games to ever be made, and every arcade bar should have one if they can find it, because it is super hard to find, and they are only getting more expensive. And that is ice cold beer from Taito. You may see other iterations of it. Zeke's Peak is one of them. There was a remake done of ice cold beer. I hope they continue to remake it. I really would love to see somebody come up with a board that changes the light of where you want to get the ball in instead of just, you know, going 1 through 10 every time. But this is a game that should be reproduced. There could be new rule sets to it, and I really hope at some point somebody does that.
Could you give us a playthrough?
Yeah, I'll give you a little play. Always have a quarter. All right, so marble's gonna come out here. I have to get it in the 1 hole. Now, when you watch me do this, it's gonna appear to be easy. It is not easy. It took a lot of practice to be able to maneuver through. So I'm just gonna ignore the 2 hole right now. That's what I'm supposed to get it in. I'm just gonna try to get to the 10 to show you my path. You wanna be constantly moving the joysticks because the bar will move on its own. Oh, just missed it. Yeah, this game is highly addictive and super fun. And again, you're shooting for that. It's gonna take you a couple of weeks to get to 10, and you're really gonna have to practice your form, but yeah, really, really great game. A couple of the arcade games out right now. We've got Miss Pac-Man, which again, must have, just replaced Nibbler. Then in the Neo Geo, we have Metal Slug and Windjammers. I think Windjammers is one of the greatest arcade games ever made, and it's super fun. And they actually just introduced it on the PlayStation 4, so I hope people will play it there and then come play the actual game here, because it is one of the best head-to-head games. Galaga, which I'm absolutely atrocious at, and that's okay. Tapper, which I'm equally atrocious at, but it's, you know, again, a classic game, and it's a bar, you have to have a tapper. And one of those things about tappers is, like, even though we have the Budweiser logo on there, you either find boards that are root beer tapper or are Budweiser tapper. We have the root beer tapper board in there, and then we do have a Budweiser tapper board. Just, you know, if we ever need it. But it's nice to hang on to.
I was interested in witnessing what an evening was like at Arcadia, and what better evening to visit was the one night out of the month that held the Arcadia Championship, a night where patrons come together to compete.
All right, everyone, welcome to Arcadia Championship for October. 1-year anniversary. We have a 1-year anniversary. The belt is on the line, as well as $500 in prizes. Yeah. We have 22 of you and 28 different arenas to play in. Of those arenas, we have Attack from Mars, Big Buck Hunter, Circus Voltaire, Dive Kick, Donkey Kong, Dracula, Earthshaker, NBA Fast Break, Frogger.
Games range from not only pinball to arcade video games, but board games as well. You can definitely find home video game consoles like Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis at Arcadia also. But where did Arcadia get many of these arcade and pinball machines that are decades old?
The amount of games we have here and the titles we have, it's a big collection. So that's something that we had to start doing a lot earlier than, I mean, we were collectors before we wanted to do this arcade bar. You know, you kind of have to be. So it started with my brother, who had his little basement arcade. You know, he started collecting games maybe 10 years ago. Maybe longer, and just, you know, doing random warehouse runs, like driving out to Buffalo because you hear there's a warehouse and it had a bunch of old arcade games, and like, let's go kind of pick through, see what we can find, if there's anything cool out there. Sometimes you just got to make a 12-hour drive to go get something, or a 17-hour drive to go get something. Games need to be repaired all the time. Most of these games are older than I am, at least the arcade ones anyway. So we have a tech that comes in twice a week, our buddy Jake, and, you know, because we're players, we want to make sure that these games are in good repair, and, you know, they should play like they should play.
There were other games that Arcadia had in storage, and Dave was willing to show me what games were in the process of being repaired and those that were ready to be put out on the Arcadia floor.
So there's always extra games, and we have our fair share of just random things in the basement, the depths of Arcadia. We've got a Genie and a Funland, Pinball, Flash Gordon, Contra, Area 51, Street Fighter 2. There is a Swords of Fury pinball in the back, No Good Gophers, X-Men, another X-Men, Arkanoid, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, Simpsons, Mouse and Around pinball, Street Fighter 2 pinball, Police Force Fire, NBA Jam. These are things that either just need some work or are out of the rotation. We've got some other storage, other places, other games like Joust, Dig Dug back here, which I would really love to get working because I want that on the floor so badly.
Arcadia started out serving patrons over 21, but a demand began growing to open Arcadia for kids and their parents. Arcadia was happy to oblige with a change in schedule on their monthly calendar. One could speculate that some young pinball wizards and arcade game champions are in the making.
We do have all ages hours that we do on Saturdays for 4 hours, and you see I don't know who's more excited to come here, whether it's the kids or the parents, because they see the games like, oh, like, I want to show you this game, I grew up with Metal Slug, I want to show you, and the kids are like, yeah, I'm going to go play Sonic the Hedgehog. There's this girl who's maybe 7 years old, and she is a ringer at pinball already. Like, she comes in with her dad, she sits up on the stool and like can barely see over the glass. But like, that's what she wants to do. And her dad actually had told me that there was a question at school that they had to write the answers to, and it was, what was your favorite smell? And she wrote the arcade bar. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I'll take it,
Arcadia is not only a place to come and unwind, but it's also a creative space as well. When I visited on tournament night, I was surprised to see an artist at work drawing characters for a card game. People from the gaming profession definitely drop in to experience Arcadia, have a beer, and perhaps get some work done.
There's a couple of friends that drop by every once in a while and give us an update on their video games they're making. The folks at Big Room Studios do some work with VR, which is really cool.
One of the first things you'll notice about Arcadia are the patrons. Everyone is laid back and friendly. When you're trying to maintain an environment where vintage pinball and arcade games need to be preserved, this is essential. Everyone is welcome, but if you're looking for belligerent fall-down drunk chaos, then you're going to have to go elsewhere. Dave Aceto explains.
The people are what make the bar, for sure. You can only do so much presenting a space to a group of people and saying like, okay, this is our space, this is a nerd-friendly, cool spot. But if the clientele isn't great, then the space isn't going to be great. And I think that's what differentiates us from maybe different areas of town in Portland. Look, the old port of Portland, where a lot of the bars are, it's kind of more of a, bro-heavy scene, and people can probably get away with some offensive language and binge drinking, and that's like not our scene here. We hold our employees to standards and we hold our customers to standards. And if we hear anybody that's, being bigoted or, abusing machines, we're going to have a talk with you, and we're going to be like, look, that's not cool. And we're part of a group of businesses that are called Safe Space Portland that provide an area for people to feel comfortable about being who they are and to not worry about being confronted about who they are. But the people are awesome. Like, I love them. I ended up opening this place, and now I have 400 new friends.
Can I get Benji versus Dave in an elimination match on Game of Thrones?
The Arcadia Championship continued, and people not only treated the machines with respect, but they treated one another with respect. When someone lost a game, there were no hard feelings. There were just high fives, fist bumps, hugs, and handshakes. Beer, cocktails, and conversation carried on throughout the evening. The arcade bar originated as an idea over beer and pinball between friends Dave Aceto and Ben Culver. The name of the bar was a parody of Arcadia, Maine's famous national park. Aceto and Culver launched a Kickstarter in 2014 that raised over $25,000 in startup funds. It was clear that Portland, Maine needed a nerd-friendly space, and as a fellow nerd and longtime Portland resident, I can tell you it was long overdue. What built Arcadia was not only the games, but the patrons also.
Big V!
Let's go! Let's go!
That's it. There you go. Oh! Still one to you.
You've got the joystick in your hand. You know, you can tilt a pinball machine and affect the gameplay. You can play a board game and you're actually there with the difference is you're there with people. Like, that's what it is. It's yes, this is preserving the games, but I think it's also preserving the way that people interact. It's about preserving a way of interacting with people. That's what the games are about to me. Yes, they're about games. It's about the gameplay, but I think it's more about people.
Well done, man. Congratulations.
Arcadia's popularity was apparent. What was also apparent was that Arcadia was outgrowing its space, and it was time to make room for more games and more people.
I'm hoping that when we expand and have a larger space here, that we can kind of look. The first 3 years were basically an experiment. We didn't know what we were doing. We had an idea of what we wanted to be, and now that we have been around for a few years, we can kind of reshape what the space is and what it provides. I want to make sure that board gamers have more table space, feel more comfortable. I want to make sure that people who are here to play consoles don't have to wait for an hour to get on Smash Brothers. There should be a couple of setups for it. Now that I know what the clientele wants to do, I have a better idea of it. Now I can cater to them a little better.
I wanted to see Arcadia's new expanded space, so I visited very early on a Sunday to avoid the crowds. Upon entering, it was clear to see the renovation provided a much more expanded space for patrons, a larger bar area, and a new kitchen. There was more space for pinball, arcade cabinets, and for patrons to watch the surrounding gameplay. Notice the addition of classic skee-ball lanes? The other expanded feature was more seating and tables for board games and card games like Magic the Gathering and Dominion. There was even a separate room for console gaming.
It's been a new space. We're still getting used to it in a way. It's been, the space itself has been open for maybe 4 months now. And, there's always things you aren't sure how they're going to work, or maybe you envision one thing for the space and it becomes another. But, overall we're really happy with it. And it's going to be one of those things where we continue to see how it evolves and what the demand is for. Do people want more? Are they happy with the tabletop area for gaming? Do they want more arcades? Do they want more pinball? It's one of those things where we just kind of play it by ear for a while and adjust it on the fly. It's just I think it's nice to have that kind of separated space where you've got the pinball and the arcades, you've got the skee ball in their own separate areas, and if you want to escape it, you have that option to kind of just relax or have a face-to-face conversation with somebody if you want to just grab a drink and chill out for a little bit.
As I looked around even further, I noticed some new additions of classic arcade games had been added. Their development origins range from Chicago to Japan, with more games offering a 3 to 4 player experience. There was a genre for every game player, from fighting, racing, puzzlers, sports, platformers, shoot-'em-ups, and light gun games. Look closely above the bar and you'll also see the addition of a classic bingo board that had to be rewired. Dave and his staff undertook the 9-hour task of rewiring each bingo number to a new control panel to bring it up and running. Despite all the additions and expanded space, Dave Aceto will be the first to admit that it was difficult being shut down, but he still found a way to connect with Arcadia patrons.
Yeah, we were down for about 2.5 months, which was, it tough on both the employees and the patrons, because you have this place that people are coming to for 4 or 5 days a week, and then all of a sudden it's not there. We tried to still run some events around town, little get-togethers with people where it was like, hey, we're going to the bowling alley tonight. If you want to join us, come see everybody you haven't seen in a couple of weeks. So we definitely tried to keep people engaged in the community aspect of the bar. Just because the physical space that we all went to wasn't here anymore, doesn't mean that we didn't want to see each other or go hunt for machines somewhere else. There was definitely days where it's like, oh, we hear there's a new Houdini pinball machine at the bowling alley in Scarborough. Let's bring a couple of cars and go see if we can play it. Or people opened up their houses, which was really great. So if people had personal collections of arcades, then we could go and do that too. So you can't stop gaming. That's
awesome.
But I think overall people have been happy with the food. We're about to change into a new fall menu. Same with the cocktails. We kind of elevated our game in the cocktail program, where we went from having 3 or 4 cocktails with maybe a couple of specials that rotated to having maybe 9 or 10 cocktails with rotating specials. So it's been more. We've seen an increase in people coming here for that.
Arcadia also supports Southern Maine breweries, and they rotate what's on tap by season. The same goes for cocktails as well. You can choose from such offerings as Mount Doom, the Sonic Screwdriver, or the one you see here called the Fireflower. It was great being back at Arcadia. I noticed the regulars had returned, and there were those that brought their work into the bar to have a beer and keep an eye on the Red Sox game. There were initial naysayers to the idea of Arcadia National Bar, and even with its success, Dave and his Arcadia partner still faced resistance trying to get a bank loan for the bar renovation. The money for the renovation came from their own pockets, and the previous closure for the renovation was risky. However, in the end, the naysayers were silenced, the regulars came back, and the expanded Arcadia was once again enjoying success.
I just want to be able to provide this space to people. It's really, as long as the bills get paid and the employees get paid, and I've got enough to pay rent at home, that's good enough for me. I want a space for the nerdier people, for the people who don't have a space in traditional nightlife scenes, or who just like to come here and be alone and play pinball, or be around, gaming in general. I think I'm glad we were able to do it. I'm glad we're still here, and I hope that 3 years from now we get to do this again, and it's still going.
Dealt so much damage!
excited about stuff. They're excited about nerdy things. They want to come in and be like, have you seen this trailer for this game that's coming out? Did you see this new pinball machine they're making? Have you played Killer Queen yet? Like, oh my God, there's a new arcade game. It's for 10 people. You know, they want to talk about the things that we do, and that's really cool. That I hope that they feel like they are part of this business, because really they are. You know, they are the Arcadia community. Sometimes I even don't feel like we're a bar. I kind of feel like we're a clubhouse, you know, where you go after school and climb up a tree and you're in your spot.
Mark Pando, your new Arcadia champion! Yeah! You know how bittersweet it is to win for the first.
It's clear that Arcadia was not only preserving a style of gameplay, but the social aspect that you just can't get anywhere else. More games were going to be played here, and friendships were going to be formed here. Arcadia National Bar and the arcade bars like it worldwide are not a fad. They're here to stay.
To myself.
Stuck here